To help us break down today's games in the NBA playoffs, it's Spencer Davies from Basketball Insiders, and Spencer now joins us live from Ohio. Good morning and welcome back, Spencer.
Thanks for having me back on, Mico. Been fun playoffs so far.
Fun playoffs, especially if you are a member of the Golden State Warriors. This team, they're undermanned. They don't have their coach, and yet they destroyed the Blazers in this series. I mean, how does Golden State do this when they're losing key players and they don't have their coach?
Well, if you look at it, just like last year, they didn't have Kevin Durant, so they're used to not having that kind of player in some games. I mean, the coach situation is really sad with Steve Kerr with that back injury, as well as the migraines that are coming from it, and hope that he gets better, because that's a really sad situation. But Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, it's going to take more than a coach going down to stop a well-oiled machine like the Warriors. I mean, you just look at how efficient Steph Curry was in this entire series. Klay Thompson played excellent. Draymond Green, stellar defensively. You just can't put it into words how good this team really is.
Focusing on Kevin Durant for a bit and what we've seen so far in the playoffs, does he look like he's really ready to play full minutes and for an entire series, unlike what he did against the Blazers?
I think physically he looks fine. Of course, you don't want to risk too much of an injury like that with the calf, especially knowing how his injury history can be. But I think this week of rest going on, either they play Sunday if the Clippers and Jazz series goes 6, or they play Tuesday night, next Tuesday, so a week from now. So that week of rest is really going to help them out with the situation with that injury, and it's going to get them some rest and relaxation there before the next round.
It's something they certainly need with all their injuries on their roster. Let's move to the Eastern Conference, and the Raptors winning over the Bucks. Now, this Raptors team, sometimes they really struggle with the tentacles of the Bucks, but what was so different about their effort in Game 5, even with a surprising performance by Norm Powell?
Well, it started in that Game 4 when they were down 2-1. Dwayne Casey made a decision to put Jonas Valanciunas on the bench in lieu of Norman Powell and started Serge Ibaka at the center. And what that did was give them a new little bit of a life. You can tell that they frustrated Giannis Antetokounmpo in that third game, or in that fourth game, and then those changes have really given this team a new life. Last night it was a balanced attack, 6 Raptors in double figures. Norman Powell, as you said, had 25. He was dunking all over them. You can tell that he's been energized by this. Serge Ibaka has really changed the game defensively in the paint. Even Jonas, off the bench, seems to have a new life for them. And it just looks like they're right again. And this is kind of similar to what happened last year. Remember, the Raptors lost Game 1 in their house to Indiana, and they went 7 games with them. So this is just a first-round thing that they go through, it seems, every year. But I feel like this Raptors team, once they have it figured out, can really go. And also experience. That's a huge part of it, too. That they have been to the dance. The Bucks, they're not so experienced with that young lineup. So.
Oh, I was actually meaning to ask about that, because there is that exciting Bucks bandwagon because of Giannis and Middleton and all those long-limbed players for Milwaukee. But will experience become evident, or the lack thereof become evident as we near the end of this first-round series?
I think it's already happening. Besides Giannis just absolutely crushing the game this entire series, is really a fun player to watch. It's Greg Monroe's first playoff series. He's played really well, but you've got some veterans that can help you out. Jason Terry off the bench, but other than those guys, I mean, you really have a tough time with guys who've only been to the playoffs once or twice or 3 times, where these Raptors have been to the dance, 4 straight years. So,
moving to another series in the East, the Hawks and the Wizards, and this seems to be a day wherein unlikely players step up. So it's Norman Powell for the Raptors, and then it's Jose Calderon for the Hawks. In fact, 7 players for the Hawks finishing in double figures. It really was an all-out attack for Atlanta. I mean, is this the personality of this Hawks team?
Yeah, they're just a really nice balanced squad. I think also with those comments that Markieff Morris had after Game 3 talking about Paul Millsap being a crybaby. I think that made it really personal, and Paul Millsap said it himself in that post-game press conference. So this series all tied up now after last night. You had, for the Wizards, it was good to see Bradley Beal bounce back. He's had struggling a little bit of the series. He went 5 of 14 from 3 last night for 32 points. The previous game, he didn't make one on 6 attempts. John Wall's been a constant for them this entire series as well. Really been the floor general for them. But I think what it came down to is the battle of the bigs. Defensively, Dwight Howard looked great last night, and also on the other end scored 16 points and 15 rebounds on Marcin Gortat. But for Atlanta, really, who's grown up has been Dennis Schroeder. Before last night, he kind of struggled, still finished with 18 points, but before that, through those first 3 games, he was averaging 25 points and 8 assists. Remember, this kid's still pretty young, so he's coming into his own, and then the other guys are coming along with him. But like you said, Jose Calderon, huge play last night to get that strip and then change the momentum and put him up 8 when it could have been a big 4-point swing.
The thinking would be because of John Wall and Bradley Beal that the edge should go to the Wizards. But now that we're tied, what do you think of this series? Should the Wizards still have that edge? Should people still look at the Wizards as a favored team? Or do you think the Hawks have what it takes to actually eliminate the Wizards?
Well, as we go back to experience, not that the Wizards aren't experienced in the playoffs, they've definitely been there, but Mike Budenholzer, let's not forget that he's been to 3 straight playoff series and that he can get this team and galvanize what he has from his guys because he knows them. But still, I feel like momentum swings go back and forth in the first round and in any playoff series, really. So you really just have to see what happens in Game 5. It's going back to the Verizon Center in D.C., and usually who wins that game, I think it's 86% of the time wins the series. So that's a decisive Game 5, and we'll see how the Wizards come out. I think Bradley Beal's going to get back on track, especially after what last night happened. So we'll see. It's going to be fun.
Spencer Davies of Basketball Insiders. Thank you so much, Spencer, for being back on the show.
Yep, thanks for having me on, Mico.